It was Giga Chad. Now the only way I can feel about doing this one is I just randomly made it in my head, and I figured might as well make it. I got nothing else to do right now, and honestly, I'm trying to still figure out how to make the Naruto videos people are requesting from me, and I will make them, but I will struggle to make them for a while. So yeah, it may take a while because every time I try doing them, I can't figure it out. So here's what we go with. So Issei, actually over the years, wishing to become a hero, he looked up a few different things like bodybuilding tactics. Every day he works out. He literally does nothing but work out, taking like 50-pound dumbbells and curls them for just help. And these are basically paperweights to him. At this point, he has the Giga Chad, the exact physique. That's his physique. Like, he does nothing but work out and eats the best foods he can get. And his parents sadly died when he was younger, so he doesn't actually have his parents as he did in the anime. But his father was a bodybuilder. I'm going to say something looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, he looks like that. And his mother was a female bodybuilder who was just as defined, like one of the most defined women in the world. She basically got the Mrs. Olympia thing. And his father was Mr. Olympia. They were the two strongest, best physiques. And no one knows about this about Issei, but he's actually super physically strong, and he wasn't training to be looking like Giga Chad. He trained not so he could actually surpass his father's record, which his father actually holds like most of the lifting world record for deadlift, squat, bench press, all of those. He holds them each. But sadly, they were just about a little over most guys' ability. Eddie Hall's real life record setting deadlift was 500 pounds, I don't know what it was, but it was around 1,000, and like, it was over 1,000 pounds. It was over 500, I think, kilograms or something. I forgot what it was, but yeah, it was that heavy that he basically almost died doing it. Issei's father's, on the other hand, was around 700, and this was his world record setter that actually wound up killing his father, and his mother getting the world records for women, being that it was actually 499. She wasn't able to get the 500 one, as she hit the ground right after the 499, sadly killing them both when Issei was still just a little boy who worked out. Actually being sad whenever he hears this, but he actually was told a different thing. As right when they died, they said something that surprised Issei, saying, "Son, we would have survived," as they coughed blood. Which it wasn't really the lifting that killed them, it was their last lift ever. Which didn't kill them specifically. It helped kill them, yes, but it basically just took the disease they already had and used that to kill them. I'm gonna say someone like hit them with an uncurable disease that was magic, like a magical curse. Like, straight up, someone cursed them because they kept losing to them. But Issei won't have the same fate, as he went through life always gaining muscle, and his parents weren't really known. They were known, but no one ever knew them as the Hyodo family, as they were only ever known by their first name. Some people remark how he had a similar name to his father's, which was actually kind of funny, as he looked like he was built like a direct replica. As he actually walked into school one day, and the worst thing that could have happened. Now, Issei isn't the same Issei. While he is still a little bit perverted, he doesn't have the same title as, one of the perverted trio. There's the perverted duo, which actually is called still the perverted trio, as there's them, and Aika Kitty, who's actually part of those three in this version, as she's always simping over Issei, and thing is, she's got this power to see the measurements of any guy's thing. Although she noted that anytime she tried using it on Issei, it was too big for her to measure, and it would break her glasses. And she's tried this like 17 different times, always having a spare pair on her to put back on, surprising everyone whenever she keeps trying. And one day she actually just said, "Issei, I want to talk to you about something." "Alright, what's up?" And she asked to actually know how big he was, and he said, "Alright, 12 inches. Hearing this, she was like, "What?" "Yeah, 12 inches. "Really?" "Well, I mean, soft, but yeah." "Well, so what is it hard?" "You'll have to find that out. If you want to find that information out, you have to go on a date with me." And she said, "Deal." they went on their date, and they actually go back to Issei's place, which is just his own, because his parents made millions over their lifetime on celebrity TV shows, and all that money went all to Issei. Which, being that he had all the cash, and all this physique, he was basically rolling in whatever he wanted. Now, whenever she came there after their date, which was actually at a fancy restaurant that Issei paid for, they went there and they went in the house, noting that it was actually a giant mansion. Asking, as she actually saw the picture, saying, "Isn't that the true Mrs. Olympia and Mr. Olympia?" Yeah. I didn't expect you to know who they were. Wait, why are there pictures in your... Wait, is that your parents? I kept realizing that, so he was saying, yes, they are. I heard about what happened to them a while back. Yeah, whatever. So, sorry about the bad news. As he said, it's whatever. And then it said, as he had said something that kind of surprised her, "You still want to just do with this thing?" Sure, as she actually pulled his pants down, which was all he was wearing at this point, as he took off his nice dress shirt, and she saw what surprised her more than anything, as she stroked it and played with it, noting how big it actually was. As it flung down right over her face, her playing with it, making it to its full size of an astonishing 16 inches, saying, "There's your record-setting, little girl," flexing, his muscles, saying, "Well, the more workouts I do, the more my blood can pump," which allows this to happen. As she's like, "I don't even know how to handle this," Issei saying, "Well, now you know the actual size of it," as she had taken a tape measure to actually guarantee the size, saying the exact size, writing it down on a piece of paper, saying she needed to keep that and put Issei's D size right on there and just put it in, her pocket, or just put it in her purse, because she was wearing a blue, dress. And they actually did the deed, which was mainly just him saying, "Alright, you're sure about this?" Her saying, "Yes." They're having their fun when Issei goes in and starts thrusting forward, and even though they live in a mansion that's giant with giant things around them, even a whole binge, they have weight rooms and everything, and you just hear loud moaning. The neighbors didn't hear it, but they could somewhat tell, just if they walked outside their house and focused hard enough, they could hear really loud moaning, as it would be quite quiet as far as they were, and inside of a building. So yeah, as Issei would actually say, "Come here," going down to the first basement, kind of leading her there, as they were already completely naked. She goes in there and sees that, wait a minute, as she looks around in the basement, seeing that it was actually his room. Surprised by this, saying, "So this is your room?" "Yeah." "What happened to what's with all the other rooms in the house?" Spare guest rooms, I guess." Saying, "Alright," as it was actually soundproofed, as they were able to do all they wanted. And then around midnight, Ike is saying, "Oh no, look at the time, I have to get home." Issei saying, "Don't worry, come on, I'll walk you there." Getting his jeans on and actually just putting on a black tank top instead of, anything else. As she put her dress on, actually Issei showed her, kind of messed with it so she looked better, and her saying, "Wow, you're actually pretty good at that." "Yeah, I guess I am." As he basically walked her home, saying it would be bad for her to just go there on her own. But then she said, "Wait, but actually they're over there. I need to catch a taxi, see if there's any going around." Him saying, "That's not a good idea. Don't you know what could happen right now?" "What do you mean?" "Well, just come on." As he actually picked her up and actually set her in front of him, which surprised her, saying, "We're on a motorcycle." "Yeah, and I'm so much bigger than you that I have to be, and I'm not going to trust what could happen." Setting her down on the motorcycle and getting on himself, she basically hooks onto his back, and he actually took a helmet and gave it to her. And him saying, "I won't need one." As he basically rode the motorcycle all the way, there, just wearing a pair of goggles, for riding. Getting all the way about, half a mile, being where they're right next to her house, and actually saying, "Do you want to meet my parents?" Sure, but wouldn't they already be asleep at this time? "No, they're probably waiting right there." Alright, as he basically just put the keys to the motorcycle in his pocket, parking it right in front of their house, which I'm going to say was a build Harley. as he basically walks in, as she let him in, and this is when her father would turn the lamp on, saying, "Do you have any idea how late it is, young lady?" Wait a minute. Looking at him, saying, as she looked picture to picture, next to an old picture of the true Mr. Olympia, which was the man he actually was inspired by, saying, "By chance, are you related to Mr. Olympia, the ultimate Mr. Olympia, and the ultimate Mrs. Olympia?" Showing the pictures, saying, "Yeah, they're my parents. Why?" "Oh, I'm sorry, son, but I wanted to know why my daughter was late so long." This is when Issei said, "It's actually kind of simple. I took her out for a nice date. We walked, we talked, we had fun, and then I ran out of gas." "What?" "Yeah, on our little ride with the motorcycle." As he said, "Alright, so why did it take you so many extra hours?" "Well, we were over there, saying an area by the forest." As he basically said, I basically had to pick her up. We basically had to walk over to my place so she could actually get there. It was closer. Wait, so she had to walk in heels? No, she said on my bike, and I pushed it the whole way. Wow. And then we got freshened up and went and got a thing of gas in there so I could get here. "Alright, well, y'all can stay as late as y'all want if y'all want to." Hearing this, Issei said, "Thank you, sir. You can be gone as long as you want." And this is when her mother would say, "Come here, Ika." And Ika would say, "Yes, Mom?" "Listen, I want you to have his kids." This is actually surprising. Ika saying, "What?" "Look, I know what y'all actually did. I can see it in your eyes. You saw how big it was. I want you to have his kids." Hearing this, her mom said, "Really?" Her mom had actually been telling her this. She said, "Really?" "Yes." Seeing his ultimate chiseled look, being decided that'd be the best idea. Hold on a second, guys. Alright, back to the video. Sorry about that, guys. I had to do something. So yeah, as Issei / GigaChad is basically doing this, her older sister would walk in the house, and this is when she would basically be honest about what happens, and saying she was just going out partying all night, smelling of alcohol, which she's only like a year older than Ika in this version, and her mother said, "Come here," punishing her a little bit, saying, "You shouldn't have done that," all that, yada yada yada. And this is when Issei said, "You want to have a date tomorrow?" Ika saying yes, before Issei was about to leave. And this is when the parents said, "Do you mind taking her older sister along with you?" "Sure." The older sister recognizing Issei, noting, "Wait, you're Issei Hayato, right?" "Yeah." "You recognize me from somewhere?" "Yeah, Kuo, you're that guy in my sister's class." "Wait, y'all are dating?" "Sure, let's go with that." As even though like their parents are more into bodybuilders and stuff like that, these girls were growing up around that. They are obsessed with bodybuilders. Like anytime they see a buff dude, they just think of that. Like they get hornier and hornier. So whenever like these two girls see this ultimate Chad around their age, they're actually like, "We want him." This is when something that was never expected to happen. Both girls jump on Issei, saying, "Can we stay with him for the next 2 days?" Being that the next 2 days are just like a weekend, the parents agree, thinking it wouldn't be a big deal. As Issei basically enjoying himself as he walks, all the way home, doing something that actually kind of surprises them. As you see the Giga Chad look in his eyes, saying, as he's sniffing the air, saying, something isn't right. As he's twisted, as he said, "I'll see y'all tomorrow. When should I pick you up?" As there is school this next day, which saying, "We'll be ready with our suitcases packed, so do you have a bigger vehicle?" Yeah, I do." Here, as thinking, at least 3 people and maybe 4 suitcases had to fit in this vehicle. And he basically was wondering which vehicle he should take, as he's got a Lamborghini, a Corvette. The Corvette was kind of out of the picture. He's got a few other ones. And this is when he actually just decided to grab the one he never thought he'd take. He wound up getting in a Ford F-150. And if y'all don't know what that is, it's basically equivalent of Redneck Gone Wild in a truck. But he's actually got, you know, a surprisingly good amount of vehicles, so he's got basically any vehicle he wants, and enough money to get any vehicle he doesn't already have. As he pulls up the next day after school, which I actually saw that he actually drove to school this day, saying, "Hey, Issei," and Ike's sister's saying, "What's up? Y'all want to go grab y'all stuff from y'all's place?" And this is actually a Friday that they're doing this, so they said yes. As he said, "Come on, hop in the truck." And they see this and they're like, "What the?" Kind of confused on why he's got more than like just what they were expecting. And they said, how many vehicles do you have?" And he said, "I lost count." Name a vehicle, as he said, "Name a vehicle and I'll tell you if I have it or not." They would go around naming vehicles. He says, "Yes, yes, yes." Then they name one that's like a compact car, which he can't fit in. He says, "Never would I ever fit in that." Hearing this, they said, "I knew there was a vehicle you didn't have." "Yeah, but only ones I couldn't fit in." Fair point. As they basically just start, as they go over to Issei's place, which the father wanted to have the address in case he needed to contact them with the number and everything. So they do that, and Issei's, doing his thing. This is when the sister goes clean and said, "Actually, I just came here to sleep with you, Issei." And this is when Ike and her will say, "Our mother told us to sleep with you." Issei saying, "No, is this really what y'all want?" Them saying, yes. He said, "Alright, Ike, you know what to do." As she basically just drops his pants, which he wasn't even wearing a shirt up to this point. Not even like a black tank top, he just was like in this picture as he was walking around doing something no one would ever expect. Just in his underwear with like these massive, like beastly looking bod, which I know there is like ones of him wearing just like a Speedo, which for bodybuilding makes sense, but I do not want to go to those, so yeah. As he basically says, "Oh, y'all want to do something?" They said, "Yes." Saying, "What could we do with you?" He's just saying, "Anything y'all want." And the first thing is, Ike actually said, "Sis, I've already experienced this. You want to give it a shot?" Her saying, "Sure, it couldn't be that big." As her jaw just drops, saying, "How big is that?" And this is when Ike said, 16.1 inches. Wow. Yeah. Issei stating in a very deep voice, saying, "So you're still sure about this?" She said, "Destroy me." Issei just cracking his neck, saying, "Alright," and he goes wild. And when he's done, like after about 4 hours, he goes over and actually makes something they weren't expecting. And this is right after school, so it's around like, I'm gonna say it was 4 o'clock when they got out of school, just for reasons. I don't know the actual time, it might be 5, so whatever. We're gonna say they got out at like 4 because it may be a special day. And then they actually, from 4 to 8, they were doing this. Like, actually about 5 to 8. They were just doing this. And then at 7, they actually get out of bed. As they kind of walk with a slight limp on their legs. And he says, "Y'all alright?" "Yes, we'll be fine." "Did you make something?" "Yes," as he actually showed this amazing spaghetti with meatballs. Wow. Alfredo with broccoli and chicken. Like, amazing Alfredo. And then a big, like 4, maybe 5 steaks, like full giant steaks, that he said, "Alright, get whatever you want to eat." Seeing this, saying, "Wow, this was a lot of food." And he actually made himself a big old plate, which, one of them like old like oval dinner trays. He uses that as a plate, which has like 2 steaks on it, about like maybe 10,000 calories of spaghetti, 10,000 calories of Alfredo, and he's just eating crazy of this. And when he's done, he actually said, "Alright, when y'all want to, just go meet me in the room that you'll hear clanking in." them saying, alright, as they just were almost finished themselves, as Issei basically got up and washed all the dishes. When that was done, he walked over to the workout room, them saying, it's like a 5-star gym. Issei saying, well, yeah, it has to be. And then looking at the different weights, saying, wait, how old are these? They were my dad's and mom's. Why? These things are like multi-million dollars, you know. I know, and they're even signed. I'm never gonna sell them, though. Hearing this, they're like, alright. As they were actually ground up grabbing the 5-pounders and start working themselves out, too. With Issei, as he grabs like 50-pounders, after he's done a little bit of a warm-up, and he starts using them for boxing training, which they see him basically weaving at full speed, throwing punches that would make even some of the most powerful boxers be impressed. Like the fastest boxers would surprised by this. Now, I'm gonna say one day he was just walking home, like about 2 days later, and this is when he would still meet Rainier. Rainier tries the same exact trick as she did in canon, just for Issei to say, alright, just so you know, you won't, as he said, alright, whatever. Now, Ika and her sister aren't really dating Issei. As they said, it's open to anyone, but anything Issei wanted to do, he could. Now, Rias noted there was literally the embodiment of a Chad at her school. Think about getting Issei as something, maybe a rook or something, but not surprised. I'm actually being a little bit surprised, as this is when Ika and them would see Issei walking around with his hands in his pockets, wearing a black tank top on top of this, as it's actually a skin-hugging one, which is really tight. They actually go say, hey, Issei, and they're like, and this is when Rainier would say, who are they? Saying, well, we're not dating, I'm just going on a date with you. Rainier saying, alright, as they go down through the entire day, and everything goes as canon until a light spear pierces Issei's chest. This is when Ika and her sister would say, how dare you? You crazy fallen monster. Hearing this, their heads get turned, as Rainier said, here, you too. Throwing a light spear into each of them, Issei standing back up saying, that wasn't enough to kill me. Seeing this, she threw another one, which Issei barely was able to move out the way of, and throws a full force punch, which actually is about 100 times whatever the punches Issei threw in canon. So this punch is so much more powerful, and actually unlocks the boosted gear, at least in its critical overform. Her noting that this punch may kill her, she moves out the way barely, calling for Donut, seeking them to pull up. They all pull up and start throwing light spears into Issei. Issei, who's almost on the ground, dead, as he's dying, saying, someone help them. Not even thinking of himself, as Rias appears saying, oh no. Now, I'm going to say through luck, both Ika and her sister took a single pawn. And this is when they're trying to use any piece they could for Issei, just as Rias saw that all 6 of her pieces turned into, like her pieces changed. 2 of the pawns turned into like the special pawns. They were actually equivalent to being the original 8 pawns. And she actually tried using them, and actually says they worked. They were mutant pieces, but they worked. Actually turning every single one of her pawns that went to Issei into a mutant piece. Surprising her, saying, wow. And Ika actually has a sacred gear. It's called Eye of God, which allows her to look and see all the stats and everything of someone, and actually anything about them, which works pretty much perfect. Which she said, wow, with this actual powered up, she could see every single stat, everything she wanted. And then we see that Issei said something unexpected, that only as he kind of had 2 of the pawns that was going in his system basically pulled out, that just went back to normal pawns, surprising her a little bit, surprising Rias, saying, what the? Issei then looks at her saying, listen, come to my place. I'll explain a little bit of things. One, the ability to change pieces like that is something I learned. Two, I know it took me messing with them, but I made it work. Now that they're mutated pieces, it's the equivalent to having 8 original pawn pieces inside of me. Wow. But what about these two? They only took 1 each. I know. And there's 2 people I want you to revive as well, as Mitsuda and Motohama both sadly die within the next 2 days. Which actually was the same day. They were both taking that pawn, seeing each other saying, what the? As the light switch hit both of them, Issei would appear in his giga chat state saying, hey. Them all saying, in their head saying, what the? What are you doing here? I thought we killed you. You thought wrong. As they said, this time we will, as Issei turned on his boosted gear saying, no you won't. Rias! Rias running in saying, alright Issei, as both of the other girls saying, get those 2 pervs out of here, revive them. As both of those were mutated pawns that went inside these 2. As they opened their eyes, seeing the power they had, they weren't really able to open their eyes, they were just, teleported out with Rias, as Issei put his knuckles up saying, later, as he vanished out of a teleportation circle himself, them saying, God damn it! Seeing that there was now a mutated piece in each of them, they were like, as they woke up the next morning on Issei's couch saying, where are we? What's going on? As they see Issei's Giga Chat form looking down at them saying, good morning. Alright, come here. It's 4:30 a.m. Come on. As he said, I'll tell you exactly what happened. You 2 got tricked into dating a fallen angel. Trust me, the same thing happened to me. I understand. They killed you. You were revived by a devil chick that goes to our school. I will grab you and we will go over to the club room after school. Really? She'll explain everything there. Alright. Though, this is when they actually skipped after school, Issei kind of would be fetched by, not Rias, but Kiba, and Issei standing next to each other looks like the perfect Giga Chad duo, as they see the White Knight of Kuo, the prince, and they see the absolute emperor of Kuo standing next to each other. Everyone's intrigued and very horny for this, every one of the girls. And then they see the perverted queen of Kuo, which is the only one that's considered perverted, as Akino at least hides it. As Aika's Kiryo's older sister would pop in, Aika, the little perverted girl of Kuo, and the 2 pervs standing up. They all walked over, as Issei basically said, come on. With Kiba leading the way, with Issei's hands in his pockets, saying, what's good? Them proceeding to walk in, saying, alright, now what? Rias starting to explain that they're all now devils and all that, and Issei actually said something that really surprised them. And because of me, you each have a mutated pawn piece. Them saying, wait, pardon? Yeah, I would usually take around 8 pawn pieces, but I used my power to mutate them all in my dying breath, so that you 2 would each be able to have a pawn piece as well. And you 2 as well. Hearing this, they're like, wait, what? Aika, your gear, if I'm not mistaken, is called the right eye. The right eye of God. This allows you to be able to look at anyone's stats. And you, Motohama, you have the left eye of God. It allows you to do the same thing. Though if someone had both eyes, they would be able to tell literally any characteristic about a person, whether they're lying or not, anything. They have the literal all-seeing eyes. This is when Aika's older sister said, do I have anything special? Yes. You've got something called, if I'm not mistaken, it was called True Cannon, which is the basic ability where your hand has a cannon which launches magical blasts. Your recovery of magic even increases with using this thing. Really? Yes. And then this is when Mitsuda would be like, alright, now what do I have? Alright, yours kinda surprising. As he said, you, my little friend, have a special gear. What gear? Issei then smirks with the biggest one anyone's ever seen on his face, like this true Giga Chad smirk, saying, your gear is actually called the Thunder Dragon. Is a Thunder Dragon gear. It's, as he sees the tiny blue brass knuckles, saying it's the opening form of it. Telling each of them to focus on that certain limb he's talked about. For Aika's older sister, being able to focus on either one it was, then she's able to somewhat turn one of her hands into a kind of magical cannon. And this is when he said, now try focusing on your other arm as well. As she noted, it made like a tube as well, saying, was this another cannon? No, it couldn't be. No. You could suck people's magic up with one of them, with that gem on it, and shoot it out the other end. Her saying, wouldn't that mean if I'm fighting someone who's just using magic, I'm an unstoppable force? Yes, but you still have your own limits on how much magic you can handle going through your body. So if someone with a lot of magic like Rias or Akano, or even if Rias and Akano went together, they could probably defeat you. Ah. Yes, now. Issei would then say, and my gear, as he throws it down, is a boosted gear. In its true form, saying, there you go. We'll start training you all at my place. Alright? Ask your parents if y'all can all stay over. And this is when the parents, Issei would actually have to go visit each of their parents, and give them each permission. Asking Kiba if he would like to come too, as he would need some help training them, as well as Konako. Konako, seeing this to be a good time of training, saying, sure. But anything perverted happening, and she's killing someone. Issei kind of scared by this, saying, alright, well, you two. Rias and Akano saying, we're fine, y'all can do this. As they kind of figured, look, this dude's an all-physical powerhouse with a good bit of intelligence. If we do something to him, if we try going with him, he's probably going to force us to train our physical bodies. And they hate that. So, they were just completely against training with Issei. This is where Issei would actually do something unexpected. Well, if you change your mind, giving them his address, them saying, wait, I know this place. Yeah. I think my family worked on this once or twice. They did. I remember your father very well. What? Yes, Mr. Grimmery. He helped build the house. Really? You remember him that well? Quite easily. He also helped put the gym in. If I'm not mistaken, he said him and my father were old friends. Which they were. But really just because, like, whenever this was the strongest person they'd each ever met out of their respective people. This was the strongest person that was so small that Issei's father had ever met. And it was actually kind of surprising, but anyway, back to the video. As Issei was just doing his main thing, walking around, surprising everyone, making them all the same, like, glorious kind of meals, as he heated up something that they would never expect. There was a giant package of broccoli. Well, more along the lines of like 4 regular packages that were dumped in a giant bowl. Actually boiled on the thing, and they were asked, what's with the broccoli? It's healthy. Wow, as for the next 4 days, they were all training with Issei. The guys coming out of this looking a lot more built than ever expected. Mitsuda and Motohama actually had chiseled physiques because of newbie gains. And because they weren't that small in canon. Like, they started off with their canon physique, sure, but Issei just helped them train and gave them the right food for it. After only 4 days, they looked pretty much like built, like just a lot more built version of themselves. And the girls actually got these thunder thighs. Now, Issei's room being soundproof made it very easy as they slept next to him. Now, this next day, Issei would actually meet Asya going to school. And her having the same experience with Issei, just for Issei to have to deal with the whole thing at a similar moment when he gets summoned. He's like, hello, Giga Chad looking. As he walks in, seeing that there's blood, he's like, what the? Noticing that there's Freed, saying, hello. and Issei, by chance, was just wearing a black tank top and his regular jeans. Just for him to actually try, shooting him. This actually shot off and tore one of the straps off of Issei's tank top, and he said, "Really? That's all you could do?" This is when Issei would just tear it off, saying, "Whatever." Throwing it in his back pocket, saying, "Come on." Getting his knuckles up, Fried went to actually go slice at him as Issei activated the boosted gear and punched Fried in the mouth. This one punch shattering Fried's face and everything, basically making it where his body was laid out and his body limbs were completely outstretched. As he was completely passed out, he had still at the last moment sent a request for the fallen angels to appear, as saying it was that guy again. And this is when they would see Issei there, standing like a chiseled beast. As Issei would actually have called on his cell phone, "Hey, y'all, get here." Hearing this, they were like, "Sure." Them trying to teleport in, they actually were able to. Kiba being the main one, as he was able to, speed blitz, as he was there to stand next to Issei. And yes, Kiba was there, but for the training, which he even built up a little bit of muscle on him, but he mainly was focusing on his speed, which this is when Issei put on his actual weighted vest to Kiba, which he actually has 7 of them, so it wasn't really a big deal. He had ranging from light to heavy, light being 20 pounds, heavy being around 200. So he basically threw it on Kiba, and Kiba said, "Alright," as he barely was able to run full speed with this, and still barely able to go out of people's sight. Only Mitsuru and Motohama couldn't see him, and it was really just Motohama that could see him, which was barely. Motohama and Aika could actually still barely see him with their eye of God. Now, this barely allowed them to see him, but it somewhat allowed them to. As they could only see a blur, but still, they could tell it was him. Well, Issei was struggling a little bit. He had to actually activate his gear to see Kiba. This is when Issei would actually get into his actual fighting stance, saying, "Come on, Kiba, let's train." Kiba getting a wooden sword, and Issei getting his knuckles gritted and no gear. Activates full force and actually did a single stomp towards Issei and flew. Which Kiba did this whole speed blitz, almost shattering his hand almost shattering the sword against Issei's abs. Which was surprising to him, as he felt the vibration just for Issei to catch him and throw him flying into a wall, saying, "Alright, let's go." Now, this is where Kiba would be ready to fight. But this is when he sees a knocked out Fried, a scared girl who was almost completely naked, and Issei then pulls out something no one was expecting. He literally went into another, he activated the magic circle before the fallen angels could appear, and he actually threw his red, one of his shirts, a completely red one, that was even one of his larger ones, but it still kind of just fit his form, to Asya. Asya grabbing this shirt and putting it on over her nun clothes, saying, "Wow, it's like a part of Issei," noting that it was actually way bigger than she was expecting, and bigger than her dress by far. Bigger than her nun clothes, at least. Looking like a complete, big old hanging dress down to her knees. They see this and they're like, "What's with the smile on your face?" Saying, "He was so nice. The one who gave me directions? Oh. He's also the one who gave you the shirt, so he was a devil." And this is when, the next day, after Issei's done training, he goes out to go buy some groceries, as they've been eating all of his food. Proceeding to take all the groceries, and this is when he still would say, "Whatever, I'll do it later," as he met with Asya. They had a little fun of a day, and then, a little bit later, the same thing would happen. Though in this version, the fallen angels were just bombarding him with spears, which he was slightly doing his best to dodge, dodging at least one out of every 2, basically catching half of them in his body, but still standing, looking eye to eye with all of them, saying, "You didn't do good enough." Huffing and puffing with light spears in him, as the boosted gear made it where he was actually boosting every 10 seconds. Him actually being after the second boost, was able to dodge each light spear, but he had already had so much damage done that he was still struggling. After another boost, he was completely able to dodge, but he was already quite injured. And he actually, right when he was about to actually go up for an attack, they all kind of vanished through a magic circle, taking Asya with them to get out of there. Which Issei saying, "Damn it!" as he basically called them up saying, "Hey, I need you to come with me." Rias saying she couldn't directly support this. It would literally cause a war. Issei then walking away, Kiba and Konako going there as well, going there with Issei, and everything would happen the way in canon, but with everyone else, with the extra group of people there. As we see the complete Giga Chad look of Issei looking down on everything, saying, "Hello." As he saw Konako kick the door down, as he boosts up and started getting into a fighting stance, the first person they see is Freed. Issei with a smirk in his face saying, "Remember me? Boost." Freed in kind of a fear saying, "Fuck this, I'm out." Poof. Vanishes. Freed saying, I know they only sent me there as like a surprise attack. And this is when Freed would say, "Look, they're in the basement, underneath right here, I'm done." Konako then straight up just kicking it away, as Issei basically charged down the stairs like a raging bull, wind up bulldozing through clean to like a complete row of exorcists, grabbing Asya's, like as Rainier let her fall, Issei caught her saying, "You'll pay for this." Everyone telling him to go, they can handle them, which they were actually handling it pretty well. They could each fight quite well, and it was way easier for Konako and Kiba to actually take out these, exorcists. Because while there was so many of them, like 50, I'm going to say there was 50. And this made it where there was actually a group of 6 fighting 50, which is way better than the group of 2 in canon. Now, this made it where, the cannon arm was basically, anytime they would try using magic, which a lot of them were magic casters, anytime they throw a magical spell, she would absorb it and send it back, taking out about 10 of them through her full powered force, which was all of it charged up, but kind of taking out all of her energy as well. Knowing that there's 40 left, Kiba would then go to a full night speed, taking out 5 of them, and Konako would just do a full force punch, taking out 5 as well. Now, there were only 30. Though Konako and Kiba were a little bit winded by this, though they knew they can keep going, as this is when Mitsuda and Motohama actually got their powers together to throw full force attacks. Every punch that Issei trained them on how to do was so much easier, and every punch they did would injure one of these exorcists. And at the end of the day, Issei was there at the end of the whole fight. They were getting up there just to see Rainier starting to talk smack, as Issei would actually hit her once, which knocked the gears off her hands. Issei taking them and actually walking over, putting them on Asya, telling her she could rest for now. As Issei started just slinging his hands at full force, every hit ripping a hole clean through someone's back, as there was actually a complete beating heart in Issei's hand. He crushed it, saying, "You shouldn't have messed with me," letting go of it and pushing her off with a boot, saying, "Rias." As Rias walked in, saying, "Oh, you figured I was here? Yeah, destroy her." Saying this, "You may as well have already done it for me. Well, you have the destruction magic, don't you?" "Yes, how did you even know that?" "Don't worry about how I know things. Just do it." Hearing this, she says, "Whatever," and actually winds up she winds up destroying Rainier, which, honestly, a little bit more exhausting than she was expecting, since, it takes a lot of energy to destroy someone, because she doesn't really have the control over it just yet. Now, this would lead to something unexpected. Issei saying we should train together as a full group, which, with Asya finally being revived as a bishop, Issei then saying, "You can come stay with me." This is when the other 2 girls said, "By the way, he's ours," as they kind of grab Issei on each side. Issei saying, "Ha ha ha ha, I'm no one's. I am whoever I am. I am what I choose." Rias actually a little bit surprised by this, saying, "I'll do whatever you wish, though. But I will not just stay myself to you, too. After all, that would not be fair. I'll do as I wish," which, as you know, we are not in an exclusive relationship. Y'all said I can have as many girls as I wish, and I will only get a girl that wants me, and is allowing of a harem for that to happen. Hearing this, Rias actually wants to join a little bit, but doesn't quite admit it yet. Now, at this point, those two basically moved into Issei's room, having their own dressers full of their clothes and everything, their parents being super proud of them, moving into Issei's place. Issei's hands in his pockets most of the time, just waiting for a new moment to occur. Really, it's just his thumb in his pocket, because everything else is taken up by space with this, like, things he would usually have in his pocket, like a do-rag. Nah, kidding. He would basically usually have in his pocket just a spare t-shirt, like another, like, spare black tank top, which was quite easy to fold and hide in his pocket. His phone, like, that was basically it. He woke up in the early morning with Asya, who had actually at this point chosen to join him, in bed. Her first reaction when it first happened, saying she was still a virgin, asking Issei to hold back. Her seeing how big it was, saying, "There's no way that'll fit." Issei then going slow, only is able to get about 2 inches in before she starts saying, it's too big, please take it out." Then she looks down, seeing that all but barely the head is basically hanging out, saying, "Oh." As she started using healing magic, which wouldn't reverse the effects, but it would make it where it didn't feel anywhere as near painful. As he was actually able to get all the way down, her starting to just feel pleasure from it as he goes in and out and in and out. Every thrust, her moaning a little bit more. And at the end of the night, she was laying there unconscious with a giant smile on her face. Issei then actually saying, "Alright." Leaving her in his bed, getting just a pair of black NBA basketball shorts on, walking into the kitchen, grabbing himself a midnight snack. Just like a normal thing, he just throws like a bag of broccoli in the microwave. Like instant broccoli. So it was in there for 4 minutes. When the 4 minutes are done, he eats it straight out with a spoon, and he enjoys himself good. When he sees Mitsuda and Motohama in the training room, doing their best to throw punches and everything with the weights, Issei saying, "Y'all are still training? Good job." At this point, they've basically moved in as well, into the guest bedrooms. Kiba at this point has chosen to move in as well, so he didn't have to keep paying rent. Noting that he got basically the best training room, and there was even great swords to train with, which Issei did train with some, which he mainly just threw on weights to Kiba and just had him start running with the weapons, doing his main thing. And he was literally lifting a 40-pound practice sword, which was so heavy that even Issei would struggle to just pick it up and start swinging it around. Like, he could, but for swordsmanship, he wasn't that good, so he wasn't that great at it. Physically, he could lift it, but he wasn't quite good on keeping it perfect. Kiba was. Though Kiba could barely even move with the 200-pound vest on, with the giant sword that was over pounds in his hand, being able to barely even move and kind of crawl with it, while this is when Issei would basically say, "Alright, here you go," as he would basically take, the thing off Kiba, which Kiba would have to literally get help by Mitsuda and Motohama to remove the vest. Which, yeah, that's what they chose to do. Now, them all basically being worth 2 pawns each, except for Issei being worth 8, this is when they see something they would never expect. The next night, Rias pops in as she sees Asya, Aika, and her older sister, which I'm going to say is Anna. It's Aika and Anna. As she basically just looks like an older Aika with larger boobs. That's basically the only difference. As they were all three enjoying themselves, and they just finished, as she said, "Issei, whoa." She sees the monster hanging down, saying, "Oh, how can I help you, Rias?" As Issei doesn't even bother to cover it, he just takes a black shirt and hangs it in front of him, saying, "Can I help you?" "Oh yes, I need you to sleep with me." Issei saying, "Alright, as you're sure about this?" She said, "Yes." Right when Issei's about to actually line it up, he actually goes for a single thrusting motion, which would have only gotten about 2 inches in. Right when he does this, he's actually grabbed by the back of the throat, well, kind of by the front of his neck, which then throwing him into the wall with a hand on his throat. He says, "What's the big deal?" Looking down at Greyfield actually seeing this face, not of fear, of intrigue, what's going on. As Greyfield said, "You cannot do that to the lady," but she had requested it. Fair point, but it would go against her marriage. What? Yes, she's actually married. She's actually engaged. Issei saying, "I'll need to get the full details on this." She said, "Tomorrow," as she teleports away with Greyfield. Well, that was odd, as he looked at his neck, saying, as Aussie basically got up, just sitting up a little bit, saying, as this woke her up, hearing the thud of the wall, everyone hearing a loud bang, as they just could hear a loud thud, even through the soundproof wall, hearing Issei's giant body slamming into a wall would wake anyone up. And these guys weren't even asleep, they just could hear boom. This wasn't anything normal, as they went and knocked on the door saying, "Is everything okay in there?" As as Aika and Anna would be dressed, with Aussie as well being dressed, they were all kind of barely dressed. Issei being laying on the floor wearing just, his underwear. Them asking what happened. Did he try something he shouldn't have, or no? Rias came in here talking about wanting Issei to sleep with her and all that, just for Issei, for one of the maids of the House of Grimmery, to pick up Issei by his throat and slam him into a wall, saying she couldn't do that, and then taking off with Rias, saying they'd meet tomorrow at the club room. But knowing that tomorrow would be Saturday, they said, "Alright, let's go." Issei then walking in with just blue jeans and his Chad demeanor, just like this, surprising, everyone. This is when he say, "I did bring a shirt," as he threw on, just a regular, an open shirt, with white shirt with dolphins on it. This look basically completely surprising them, saying, "Wow." Though he didn't even button the shirt, it was just hanging open, as you could see his build. This is when Riser would say, "Risers in the human world. Yada yada yada," he said. "Oh. So what is your goal, What is your goal, boy?" As Issei actually said something that they weren't expecting. To break every record in the books. To become the strongest being in the existence. And to become the strongest harem king. Hearing this, Riser would start laughing, saying, "Boy, I actually am a harem king." Hearing this, Issei said, "Really? I'm impressed. How did you do it?" As then Riser starts talking smack, saying, "Oh, I just wasn't a simp. I got girls and all that." And Issei's like, "Wow, I'm impressed. They're kind of hot." And then he actually walks up in the most giga Chad fashion, as right when Riser has Yuba Luna go over her to grope her in front, showing Issei, just for Issei to say, "Oh, really?" Which kind of surprises everyone. As Issei would say, "Alright." With his hands in his pockets, he goes over to Riser's entire peerage, and this before anyone could say a thing. Riser was, as he basically then turns his head, saying, "Where's the guy who looks like a Chad?" Turning his head, seeing Issei right next to his peerage. And Riser's thinking, "Don't you do it. Don't you do a damn thing." And this is when Issei, with a smirk on his face, says, "Hello, lady. Hello, madam." Talking to Ravel. Ravel saying, "Hello." Trailing her hair, Issei saying, "You're quite beautiful, young lady. If I had to guess, you're younger than me, correct?" "Yes, I am." Issei hearing this saying, "Oh, a beauty like you shouldn't be stuck in a peerage like this." "Well, I am his little sister." Issei saying, "Wow. Why would he have his little sister in his harem? Kind of weird, but, I wouldn't mind you joining me." Hearing this, Riser actually threw a fireball at Issei, Issei catching it with one hand, saying, "What's wrong, Riser?" Breaking the fireball in his hand, saying, "I'm just having a conversation with your sister." And this is when Riser said, "I know what you're trying to do." As Riser almost goes to break Issei's neck just for it to snap one of his fingers. And Issei just says, "Nice try." Putting it back in place, saying, "Come on, give it another shot." Him actually breaking his hand completely against Issei when he punches him in the stomach. Issei saying, "You want to try again?" Actually starting to keep flirting with the girls, especially Ravel, all in front, while Riser was basically launching punch after punch after punch, just for Grafia to say, "Enough! We get it. You will have a rating game to decide this." Riser's thinking, "Alright, and you'll get 10 days to train." As he thought the only sacred gear Issei may have had would be something that made him impervious to damage for maybe a minute, which would make sense, which is what he thinks it is, but it's not that, by obvious means. As Riser would basically start walking, as Riser would teleport away, actually yelling at Ravel, "Why would you go doing that in front of him? That's the enemy for now. But after, we beat them and Rias joins me, I'll let you do whatever you want with him in the night. And those other two if you wish." Seeing that there was 4 boys in this peerage, she said, "Alright. So they'll be my property to do with as I wish? Sure. You can even have them join your peerage, I really don't care. I'm probably just gonna have Rias get just a peerage full of more women for me to sleep with." Which everyone kind of knew this, so it wasn't really a big deal for Riser to just say it. As Issei would then kind of crack his neck, saying, as everyone looked down at Issei's chest and stomach, with the open shirt, revealing everything, as Grafia would look down in complete awe. This is when Issei would look down, notice something that wasn't quite right. That Phoenix boy, whenever he was throwing those punches infused with fire, he just kept hitting Issei, it wound up burning, not his shirt, but his pants. As he looked down, saying, "Oh." As every girl in the club with a giant red blush on their face says, "It's massive." As they were saying, "It's massive." Even the girls being impressed and kind of blushing a little bit, saying, "Yeah." And this is when Rias would say something that was surprising. "Asya, Aika, Anna, how do you handle that thing?" Them saying, "Oh, well, about that. What we have to do is basically put everything into focus to do it. It's not easy, trust me." "I bet not, the thing's massive." This is when Grafia would actually be thinking something. "It's like 7 X's." Thinking this in her head, saying, "I just wish he was mine." As Issei would say, "Alright, that's enough staring at my package. Can someone use magic to get me a pair of pants?" Which actually was done, after about 5 minutes of him asking, which was done by Akano saying, "I don't want to take away the show, but here." Giving him just giving him a loincloth, saying, "Are you kidding?" "No, put it on." Him putting it on, as it just barely covered it, saying, "Will this work?" Him saying, "Never." As she just said, "Alright, here." Giving him a complete copy of his original clothes, because, his shirt did kind of get a little bit burned, but not crazy. As he said, "Alright," lighting the fire to his old ones, taking the new ones, and putting them on. Right in front of everyone, since he really had nothing to hide, since they were seeing everything for the past, 5 minutes. While Komuko was just staring in awe, even though she was used to eating chocolate, she said she wanted to take a bite of that. Issei saying if she wanted to, she could try, but they have 10 days to train, maybe not right now. Now, Issei then says, "Alright, what we're doing is, I was wondering, if we're doing this training, you'll want to do it," as Rias had set a place, saying, "Alright." as Issei saying, do y'all want me to bring gear or anything? Saying, sure. Kiba saying, yeah, that'd be a great idea, man. But you sure you can do that? Sure. But I will need to kind of promote to Rook, though. Rias saying, alright, if you're bringing gear for everyone. As Issei basically took his entire, like, gear and put it all in a giant bag that made even, you know, the one Konako was carrying look like it was tiny. Like, it was like 7 of those. With all the gym equipment and, you know, necessary objects that would be needed. Even a giant, like, 8-person tent, which he only got in case of emergency, which really wouldn't be needed, but he still kept it in case. I mean, really, they could probably fit everyone in there, but except for, like, one person would have to either, like, bunk up or something, which really wasn't a big deal since Rias would probably take the master. Then there would be the second biggest room, which would probably go to Akano. Then there'd be the next room, which would probably go to, probably go to Issei, and the 3 girls. Sorry about that, guys. And then Konako and Kiba would have their own rooms as well. Now, this was and then you got the final rooms going towards Mitsuda and Motohama. And they even saving some area. So yeah. Now, I mean, if you think about one that fits 8 people, I'm not talking about like I'm not talking about like 8 people like stacked on top of each other. I'm talking about like 8 like rooms in it. With kind of inflatable beds, which weren't really inflatable, but like beds in boxes kind of thing you can get at Walmart, which they're perfect for it because he has this all stuff. As he walks with this giant bag up the mountain, which he actually said, you know what, never mind, I really probably won't need promotion, as he still had to use promotion to Rook, which he was actually kind of struggling to keep up with. As he walked up next to Kiba, actually passing him, saying, on your right, Mitsuda and Motohama both having just regular bags for themselves, noting it was like lifting a mountain, as they were barely struggling to move up the hill at the same pace. Which this is when Issei said, hey Rias, Rias and Akano, them saying, what is it? Take a load off. What do you mean? As he said, here. Out of the side pocket that was a giant thing, there was a giant blanket. Them saying, what do you want us to do with this? Set it on top of there and sit down. Him just like, you sure you can do that? Sure. Them actually flying up there and sitting on the blanket and everything. This is when he said, Asia, you too. As he would basically toss her up there, and she would sit down. And then he said, Konako. Konako saying, what? Come on, take a load off for a second. Picking up the bag and putting it on one side. Konako saying, alright, as she jumped on as well. Kiba and the other 2 guys basically struggling as they see Aika and her sister, you know, Aika and Erina, not Erina, Anna. Aika and Anna both, you know, saying, oh, did we get relaxed too? Sure. They were carrying, like, no bag, but still. They kind of just go up there too. And Issei just starts walking up the mountain, passing everyone, saying, y'all need help or something, guys? Them saying, yes. As he basically took a bungee cord, which was kind of attached to his thing, and he basically hooked on all of their bags, saying, alright, let's go up the mountain. As they were basically just walking with Issei, as they couldn't even outpace him, as every step he took, he was just going normally. Him saying, alright, let's go. As they get all the way up there and sit down, as Issei kind of said, alright, everyone get down. They all get down, and Issei sets the bag down. Alright. As Issei kind of pulls out the whole thing he was doing, and basically just saying, how many rooms do you have? Restating the amount, saying, it's similar to his own place then. Is there a workout room? No. Would the guys be sharing a room? Rias saying, yes. Issei saying, crap. What's wrong? You don't get to sleep with girls? is what Akane was saying. Issei saying, no, these guys are very loud snorers, pointing to Mitsuda and Motohama. As Kiba said, nah, this is gonna suck. Whatever, me and you can probably just stay out in the tent, bro. Really? I mean, yeah, we don't do some crazy snoring all night, or they can. Them saying, no way, wait, what? As they see the tent that Issei was talking about was better than their houses. Saying, how do you afford this stuff? I'm a multi-billionaire, dude. I can afford whatever I want. Alright, fair. Whatever. As Issei just starts to walk around, looking around, saying, what's this? Seeing a completely disturbing sight. As it was a giant area in the forest that was cleared out, saying, oh, it's an area for us to train in. Issei then saying, alright, but are you sure it's big enough? Sure, as Issei put all the weights and everything down there, as he put basically a 20-pounder on everyone except for Kiba, who he put a 30-pound vest on. Then saying, alright, now start running laps. Which he then actually went to Konako, putting on a 30-pounder as well, saying, really? Yeah. Everyone being surprised they were all using the same weight. Just for Issei to say, hey, Mitsuda, Motohama, come here. Yanking off the 20-pounders and throwing on 30-pounders. Putting them almost on one knee as Issei said, come on, get up. Picking them up and they started walking. He said, run, come on, let's run laps. Throwing on a 200-pound vest, Issei then gears his foot in and starts taking off. Every step starting to overwhelm them as they see his foot go in the dirt and jump out. And then, when they're done with their workouts, they find actually a natural spring is right next to it. Which, they still have the bath place, but Issei said, I'm going to use this natural spring I found. Them actually going over there saying, that'd be amazing to use, but if they all had swimsuits, it'd be perfect. This is when Issei actually had a smirk on his face, saying, couldn't y'all use magic to make them? We could, but that'd be a waste of magic. Issei then had a smirk on his face, saying, well, we could do this. As Issei kind of said, do your best, with a smirk on his face. Them saying, alright, whatever, as they put the magic into, as he gave them his magic, and they used that magic to make the clothes appear. Just swimsuits, which were they weren't big deals, but they were still swimsuits, so yeah. As Issei then put up the tent, all the girls changing in it, and Issei said, we'll tell y'all when y'all can come out, okay? Alright. As this is when Issei, Kiba, and Mitsuda and Motohama would all get ready, throwing on some trunks, which weren't anything big. Issei is actually surprising everyone. They were expecting maybe, something smaller, but then they see the swimming trunks he chose were going to be good, but then Akano hit him with some holy lightning while she was watching him change. Issei then saying, you burned my swimming trunks, Akano. Sorry, as he just put on, a really small thing. Hold on a second, guys. He was basically wearing this thing right here, a Speedo. Now, as the Speedo kind of thing was the only thing he had, he started just walking around with that, and he basically just started, they were like, I have a question. Alright, shoot. This coming from Akano saying, how do you hide your thing in that? Issei then said something that kind of surprises her. It's not really hiding it. I just know how to kind of, cover it. This completely surprising her, saying, really? That's all? Yeah. Well, whatever. As at this point they went through a few things, as Akano said she'd like to sleep with Issei. Issei saying, alright, sure. Rias saying she wanted to get one round in, but Issei saying, alright, if you want to, it's all up to you. As they would actually go over, and this is when Konako would say, I'll do it if I get to, but on one condition. Issei said, shoot, we have to do it where I choose. Saying, okay, as Konako actually chose, saying, we'll be back in about tomorrow. And this is the second day of training. They're like, are you sure about that? Yeah, y'all train like normal. Like, train them to get strong enough. As we all know, I'm kind of a powerhouse myself, and Konako's going to train with me. What are we going to do for physical training? As Issei said, hey, Kiba, yeah? Train the guys on how to physically fight. And I think Asya knows how to train them too, as she knows all my workout plans, right? Yes. As Issei had them all written down on a piece of paper, giving them to Rias, saying, there. And this was actually surprising, saying, alright, we'll go train. As then Issei, with something that was kind of surprising, all he brought was his regular tent and a shovel with his regular clothes as well, of course. Them going around 2 miles away, out into like a far mountain away, to the peak of it, them all, him and Konako setting camp up, saying, alright, is this a good place for you? Sure. As he's nailed in the tent that was giant, as then he's put a bed in there, and sheets, good blankets and everything. Even it has a good kitchen with Issei having actually a good refrigerator thing in there. And they're at the top of a mountain. They don't need a fridge. It's pretty cold. It's a little bit snowy on the top of that mountain, but they're on the actual top of a mountain. As he literally then takes a giant, cooling bag, setting it outside with all the food. But it was so durable that it was kind of like a Yeti, but basically having it where it was full of frozen snow for covering all the food and everything. There was steaks and everything. And then this is when she said, you want to work up an appetite? He's just saying, sure, I guess, let's go. Surprising just a little bit, saying, I wasn't expecting you to say that, but alright, as Konako completely strips down naked. I knew you were a pervert, and Issei saying, oh really? As he drops his own, saying, if you can do it, so can I, right? Konako saying, uh-huh, just staring at Issei's monstrous member. Hearing this, kind of hearing what's going on, because, they're kind of snooping in on them, Rias would say, you know what, never mind. We have to do our own training. Come on. They'll be back at probably the day after tomorrow at latest. As Issei, they're just doing training. Issei, as we cut back to him, which we see something that was completely surprising. We see Konako kind of saying, be careful a little bit, it's my first time. Him going only 2 inches before her ears kind of poke a little bit out, and he says, what the? And seeing tails, as she actually admitted she's a nekashu. And that's basically a cat girl. Issei saying, what would happen if I stuck it all the way in? As she would say, they'll probably completely pop out. Hearing this, Issei saying, would you like me to make that happen? As she said, just go ahead and do it. As he does it, her just with the biggest amount of love saying, yes, yes, yes. As he just goes in and out, and in and out, and in and out. And after about 2 hours straight of this, Konako, with the biggest Ohego face on her body that has ever been recorded, like the most Ohego face, just lays down with, on the bed. Though she would have something dripping out if it wasn't for the towels Issei brought, as they're underneath Konako for, her spill. Issei then said, alright, I'll go get some food ready. Her saying, yeah, you do that, as he makes 4 completely monstrous steaks. Then thinking, I'll make one more, just in case. Making 5 monster steaks on this grill thing. Him coming back inside, saying, here you go. With 2 monster steaks on her plate, and 3 on his own. Surprising Konako saying, you can eat that much? Yeah. Okay, and you eat that much? I could try to eat this much, but I don't really think I could after all the meat you just gave me. Issei laughing, saying, you can find a way. And she does. She barely gets down the second steak, saying, wow, that's a lot. It's kind of stuffing. Oh, something else can stuff you. After their food, they go back to doing that. And then they actually go outside to the top of the mountain and start sparring. Issei wearing just this, as in the picture. Konako wearing her regular sparring gear she wore in the cannon. Just straight up swinging at Issei, and every punch she threw would basically bounce off of him. And he wouldn't even try to punch her, he would just... She said, anytime you could land a hit, there you go. Literally, it was just landing a hit. It wasn't even if it would hurt her, it was just landing one. Because Issei had shown that his physical strength was enough to hurt her. Though, his main thing is that he would basically always go for full speed and just go and grab on the booty, and fondle. It was stuff like that that she would just enjoy, saying, "I'm your little cat girl." Saying this, Issei would say, "Yes, you are." As in saying, well, it's been a day of us sparring up at the top of the mountain. Let's go back. Just for them to pick up all their campsite and everything, and Konako being on top of the bag for Issei to carry down, and her actually having a little bit of struggle to walk with her legs, a little bit messed up. As she basically said, "Alright, now, what's up?" He full force sped all the way down to where the rest of the people with a lightning flash step. Konako being completely fine though, being that she was kind of used to it, as there was basically like an area of the thing where it would kind of slow him down, and it would also kind of just be an area for her to sit at. And she actually wound up sliding down onto Issei's shoulders, which he didn't really care, as she was just on his shoulders, as well as the backpack was still on, him basically full speeding it, her saying, "Here." As she starts just rubbing on his chest, he says, "Alright, whatever." Then making it about right back to the hot springs area, which was completely vacant, was completely empty, so no one was there. They walk in there and actually have a little bit of a bath. Although they still smell like complete sex, but still. At least they're able to get a bath. This surprises them a good bit, saying, well, that was worth it. As Konako would say, now let's get back to everything, as they would completely just be done with their bath, doing it one more time, them both being a little bit disheveled, as Issei would basically then walk into the whole campsite with, Rias and all them. Rias saying, "Oh, you're finally back, you two. Well, let's get to training, let's redo all these things." Issei saying, "Alright, Mitsuda Motohama." Them saying, "Yes, you're going to be sparring against me. Kiba, yeah, you too, come on. Y'all will be fighting me." "Alright, why?" "Well, I mean, you two need to get stronger and work on your promotion. You need to get better as a knight, so you have to deal with people who have the ability to promote. So I'll be promote." And this Issei with a devilish smirk saying, "I'll promote to queen." Saying, "Konako, yeah? I want you and Rias to go against..." Actually, you know what? I want Rias... Actually, no, you and Rias against Akano and everyone else, okay? Alright. As they went to do all this sparring, and they go toe-to-toe each time. Surprisingly enough, Akano didn't make much of a difference with the other three on the team still being beginners, so yeah. This barely making it where Konako and Rias win, off Konako just being able to easily take on everyone, and Rias being kind of even, completely even with Akano, until, Konako has to step in and throw a full force hit that sent Akano flying. As Issei would then proceed to do something that kind of surprised them. For his match, he actually said here, as they all put on, they all took off their weights and actually started swinging at Issei full speed and force. Kiba using his, his actual, holy eraser sword. Both of them using their actual gears, the critical overgear, which doubled his strength, which he had at this point unlocked the full version of, and the Eye of God, which actually allowed him to somewhat suck up a little bit of energy from people and use it as his own, but at most it would maybe take a quarter of their strength away, and that was at best. Like, it would all depend on how much that person expends in the fight. Like, if he was to use up half of his energy fighting you, you'd probably get about a quarter of his strength. While Issei wasn't even using any of his energy, he just straight one kick, snapped Kiba's sword, knocked clean through Motohama. Mitsuda barely blocked it, Kiba making a new sword, while Motohama was on the ground. Mitsuda and Kiba then having to fight, and they were doing their best against Issei with critical over and sword slices. All they could do was barely do a single dragon shot combined with a sword stab, which Issei basically looked down, saying, "Look down." Kiba looking down, seeing that the sword didn't even penetrate, and only pushed his muscle in a little bit, as he flexed just to crack the sword, and the dragon shot just tore apart, just barely was stuck on his chest, as he kind of just slapped it down to the ground, cracking his neck, saying, "Come on, let's go." As both of them were knocked out, Rias had noted, "Alright, now what? You see how Aussie isn't knocked out? Yeah? Well, Asia, we've got some training for you. Okay. You're mainly going to work on learning how to fight and healing." And then he said, "Also, we all need to learn at least 1 or 2 healing spells." Hearing this, they're like, "Really?" "Yeah." Ria saying she knew a few of them, but they weren't the best ones, but they would work. So, teaching everyone healing spells, Issei was like, "These are pretty good ones." There was one that could kill you of all injury, all illness, and this is one that surprised her the most. Heals from all, like elemental hits. Hearing this, he actually learned all of them. They each learned the, heal from all injuries one, like everyone did. And Issei said, "Alright, now." Sorry about that, guys. The day had finally come to fight against, the Riser peerage. This surprising them completely, saying, "Alright." As he said, "I have a plan, though. Rias, would you hear me out on this one?" "Sure, go ahead." Issei then states, "Listen, I'm gonna bull charge right towards that Riser dude. Y'all have to try fighting against, Riser's peerage." Now, this would go a little bit different than it would in every other What If I make, for a simple reason, that this would just surprise everyone. As Issei would kind of just run past them, as he said, "Hello, ladies," as he would basically vanish, and a flash of lightning, he would be right there at their area, as they were all in the middle of it, about to fight with Akano, Rias, and all them. Surprisingly enough, when the first one to throw a swing was actually Kiba against the Knights, saying, "Come on." Konako was willing to fight both rooks. Mitsuda and Motohama were willing to fight at least 2 of the pawns each. Then Aika and Anna were both willing to fight a pawn. Rias saying, I guess that left the queen for her. And then Akano stating that I guess that left the bishops for her, as well as the other 2 pawns. As this actually intrigued them, they actually go up and do these fights. Now, first, Mitsuda and Motohama are strong enough where they make the canon Issei look weak. Training with this version of Issei made them monsters. They were able to easily win those fights. They basically all eliminate every one of Riser's teammates without much struggle. This made it where everyone was taken out except for Yuba Luna, who was fighting Rias on an almost even playing field. Surprising Rias a little bit, saying, "Wow, I'm impressed you could keep up this much." But it's not enough, as a lightning bolt would strike right down on top of the Bomb Queen, who was basically right about to go down, just for her to take a Phoenix Tear, which allowed her to take out Akano. This made it where everyone said, "Rias, retreat," seeing as their strongest member just got taken out. the Bomb Queen went to fight everyone else at once. Though surprisingly enough, she was able to take on a few of them. She was able to take on Aika and Anna, completely killing those two. Well, not killing them, but like retiring them. Then it was off to Kiba and Konako, who she was only barely able to best, as she was helping a little bit. And then finally you had Mitsuda and Motohama, who went to go start swinging with, Asya being gone with Rias, just trying to buy time for Rias to go help Issei take on Riser. And we go over to the cutscene, right as those two hit the ground, seeing as Rias just made it there, as she sees something she would never expect. She sees Riser on the ground. Every hit he does just being completely nullified by Issei just standing there. As every hit Issei does almost rips the dude apart. Every punch, every kick, every throw, at the point where Riser just has an idea, as he goes to actually use a sword, stabbing Issei. All this does is basically make him look weak, as he basically headbutt clean down and shattered the skull of Riser. This made it where Riser was talking smack, saying, he stopped talking smack, saying he was unkillable, as right when Issei was about to pierce his heart to be the final deciding blow, he was hit with a bomb in the back by the Bomb Queen. Not able to find Rias or Asya, Issei said, alright, a 2-on-1, as there was one other Phoenix tier, as Riser had recovered at this point, saying, catching his breath, saying, thank you, Yubaluna, you gave me enough time to rest. Now, we will fight him together. Have you taken care of everyone else? But then why would the game even still happen if you would have taken care of Rias? This is when she would say Rias and the bishop both escaped. Hearing this, Riser said, alright, makes sense. She would leave after, seeing how outclassed she was. Actually, I would have died. She would have beaten me. She honestly outpowered me. But, what do you mean, but? She barely won. Right when I took that Phoenix tier, I was able to destroy her queen. Then, I fought the rest of them, and then had to take another Phoenix tier. So, we're out of Phoenix tiers. Really, so it's just us with no Phoenix tiers against those three. Though that won't be big of a deal. As Riser would then start to say, you still think you're that tough? Every punch throwing at Issei. Issei actually being able to move a little bit by these punches at this point. Slamming his skull down into Riser's chest. Sending Riser flying. Saying, hello, Yubaluna. It's good to see you again. Her saying, oh, flattery will get you everywhere. As he's actually doing a little bit of flirting just for Riser to come back with a knee that was covered in fire, saying, don't you flirt with her. Issei saying, why? You're trying to flirt with my master. That's different. She's my fiancée. As he gets throat grabbed and just thrown into a mountain, Issei knocking Yubaluna clean out of the match, and then saying, alright, cracking his neck, as he just straight up kept beating down on Riser, even turning on the boosted gear and actually goes into balance breaker, barely winning the fight. As we see this, Riser says, it can't be possible. No one can beat the mighty Riser. As he passes out from exhaustion. He's literally been healing for the past, whole time. Just nothing but Issei beating the crap out of him. This is when what they would never expect to happen would happen. While it was seen like they were winning, while they did win, Riser was still trying to go through with that and refused to accept this. While Sir Zex was going to go in there and say no. Without Issei in the fight, because, while he did win that fight, and everyone else was healed, Issei was kind of tired, since he did have to tank all those hits. But then, whenever he gets home, he doesn't get to rest, as all of the girls go on top of him at once. Even Rias. They all let him smash, which is just surprising to most of them, as they can only barely even withstand it in the bottom, back in his basement, exhausting. While in his room, they feel the most exhaustion they've ever had on this 2 California king-size bed. It's literally, imagine the beds that are in the Grimmery domain. It's one of that size. As they're all kind of laid out sprawled on it, as Rias said, "I love you, Issei," as she passed out on his chest. As everyone just wakes up the next morning saying, "Oh, that was amazing." Waking up around 5 a.m. as Issei is gone. They see Issei, Kiba, Kona. They see Issei, Kiba, Mitsuda, and Motohama all sparring. Though it's them 3 on against Issei, and it's actually a pretty even match. Though they do notice that Issei is wearing weights and they're not wearing any. He's wearing his full 200-pounder, while they're not even wearing a pound of weight on them. Every hit they do actually is able to somewhat surprise them a little bit. But not really completely. This made it where all of them were surprised just for the one moment. They saw an absolute unit. Then we've got the Kokabiel arc to deal with. So, those 2 kind of come back to the city and talk to Issei, saying, "Hey, Issei, it's been a long time. You're a devil." "I am now." "What happened?" As he actually stated exactly what happened to him, they were surprised. But then saying, "Of course, that is what had to happen to you." But then they started talking the same smack to Asya, just for Issei to say, "Don't you say another word to her. She has done nothing but do good. She was kicked out by your stupid church laws." Hearing this actually surprises, both the church girls. Just for Issei to say, "Look, we're going to do this whole thing, and I don't care if y'all want my help or not." As looking to Kiba saying, "This concerns him as well, "What do you mean?" As they actually all look and see Kiba in the corner saying, asking who he was, then Kiba saying, "I'm your senior, kid." As he starts actually showing them why he is. He outdoes them in every single power aspect. This is when Issei's childhood friend actually challenges him to a fight. Issei saying, "Alright, sure." While Excalibur Destruction isn't being used on Issei, he says, "Oh, I wish it was. Then maybe I'll have a chance with both of you at once. Maybe able to at least cut my face." Just for Issei seeming arrogant, they said, "I'll kill you," as they actually stab Issei right in the chest. He looks down saying, "Really?" As you know that the entire sword completely stopped on his chest. Like it literally just barely pushed in to his pecs. And this completely sent her backwards. This is when what they weren't expecting to happen is Kiba get hit with the same exact attack that would have finished him in canon, which actually was blocked by a sword, which he sent flying, which sent him a little bit backwards. This only building it up enough time for Durandal Destruction to swing over right at Issei. As they were trying to use it both at once, Issei catching both swords, saying, "Not quite." As he completely spun kicked both of them, knocking the swords out of their hands, saying, "Now what would you do?" This is when, as a kind of last-ditch effort, Zenobia pulls out Durandal. As she swung it down, Issei barely able to catch it, as easy as he did the rest, saying, "Alright." As he completely threw it out, as he picked it up and threw it in his own hand, and slung it down, surprising her completely, saying, "Now what would you do if someone did that? Only a handful of people can even wield that blade. How are you doing that?" Issei said, "It's sheer power." Them basically saying, "We may actually need your help, Issei." Alright, whatever. As they kind of just walk away, that goes as canon. Basically, at this point, they would all kind of team up to go deal with this. The Hellhounds would just be Issei throwing one and then another punch. And then he actually goes to challenge Kokabiel, while all the swordsmen and everyone else is trying to fight, you know, Freed. Freed is just outnumbered and outclassed by every single person, while Issei is just going in an even 1-to-1 with Kokabiel, even without a boosted gear. Him saying, do you even have a sacred gear? You'll be easily taken care of, as Kokabiel is completely getting the crap beaten out of him. Issei saying, I'll completely be easy taken care of, really? Seems like you're the one being easily taken care of. This is when Kokabiel stops holding back and actually goes at full force against Issei. Issei actually taking punch after punch, landing and sending him flying, actually drawing blood from his jaw. This is when Issei would actually grab, he would actually turn on the boosted gear and start using it to its fullest capability. While they had never seen it before, while Kokabiel didn't see this before, he should have known there was a trick up the kid's sleeve, as every punch he started to hit would double and double and double, even going into balance breaker. Issei then straight up beating the living crap out of Kokabiel being like, oh. Right when Volley would appear and say, I'll take it, this, tearing off a pair of Kokabiel's wings, and then sending him to the ground. Alright. Now listen here, Issei. Listen here, my fated rival. We'll have a match. Right now I think I might be stronger than you. Oh, wait, what the crap? Issei saying, listen up. You're not stronger than me. Dap back down to his regular base form saying, you'd be lucky to even land a hit on me. Much less anything like that, of beating me. As he walks away, you know, Zenobia still kind of joined the occult research club because she still found out God was dead. Irina still kind of joined the Angels, that one all canon. Whenever they have that like meeting, that goes as basically the exact same. Issei still got that sword and trains with it, but it would actually be kind of surprising, as at this point, no one was expecting what they were to see. They saw a god-tiered Issei who was able to easily keep up with Kokabiel and even outpower him on multiple occasions at that point, wondering if he should rank up to another rank in the devil world, even getting another set of wings at chance. Issei said, nah, I don't need them, as he actually showed that he had all the wings he needed, showing out 4 devil wings. Him saying, wait, but you never took any tests or anything. No, but I just am that powerful. Fair point. As Zerzex would show out all 12 of his, saying, try getting this many. Issei saying, alright, I'll stop holding him back, as he shows 10 devil wings. Rias saying, even I only have 2 devil wings, how is this possible? Issei saying, you do realize I had to lower my power for you to contain me, remember? Okay. As everyone powers up, and this is when Motohama said, hey, yeah, what's up? Teach me how to go into balance breaker. I know my form has at least 1 balance breaker. I know every gear has a balance breaker. Come on, please. Issei saying, alright, sure. Him in his first form, fighting the best of his ability. This is when Issei would say, now focus all your sheer rage. That is kind of a fragment of Drake's gear, so here. Drake actually helping him, saying, focus, focus, and now use it. As he yelled, balance breaker! And then a big gauntlet appeared on his right hand, left hand, his legs, but there was nothing else. Then giving him a small, like, warrior helmet, saying, what about the chest plate and everything? That would be closer to what your version of Juggernaut Drive would be. Wait, so it's basically just a weaker variant? Yes, but now you can boost at every 10 seconds, just like Issei does. Actually, no, you can boost every 5 seconds now, which makes you actually superior to Issei, until he goes into Balance Breaker. Then you're completely out of luck. Hearing this, Drake's kind of like, really? Yes. Don't worry. It's not that bad. As, you know, rapidly. At least you're not the wielder of rapidly. That's completely useless. Hearing this, he's like, what? Yes, it's basically my rival's other variant. Really? So it's basically the critical over for the White Dragon? Yes. Whatever. As they started just walking away, you know, him saying, as Issei said, practice your balance breaker. they still wound up going to the underworld, and that whole thing happened as canon. They went to Kyoto, that went basically as canon. I mean, there was that Loki fight, but the Loki fight would go weirdly differently. So, one, Issei straight just got just bodying on Loki. When Mjolnir came out, he said, "It's hammer time." Throwing out the mightiest swing right before he got grabbed, saying, "Oh, still hammer time," as a bloodied, beaten Issei with multiple piercings through his body from the teeth, huffing and puffing, saying, "It's hammer time," as he gripped the hammer and then transferred all his energy to it to land that singular swing, which is all he could do. It's all he had the ability to do. Seeing this, Issei says, "Good," as he collapses. That's all that happens. He completely hit the floor. Now, this is when the most surprising thing would happen. Even though Issei collapsed and hit the ground, this is when they noticed the same thing that happened from before. It was the exact, surprisingly scene. As in this version, they go to grab him just to find that same thing that Ravel gave him. Dropping the Phoenix Star on him, he just chiseled up again, saying, "I'm back from the brink of death." All the girls celebrating with Issei that night, going into Pound Town, them all having all the fun they could have, as when they were done, Issei said, "Whew, good warm-up." Them saying, "Where does your infinite stamina come from?" You wanted me to be honest? A lot, and I mean a lot of training. Them hearing this saying, "Accurate. Whatever, just go do your thing." As Issei would still keep going, and then, then whenever the next day would roll around and everything, he would start training with Kiba, and then again. Now, they would still have to deal with the whole thing of, the new, captain, the new teacher dealing with the Occult Research Club being Azazel, which Azazel said, "Well, if you're already living together, then boom, he knows exactly what to do." Giving a prize to Issei, saying, "Here." As he said, "Here's another fragment of the boosted gear." "No, I don't need it." "What?" "Yeah, I don't need it." Give it to, as he pointed to Mitsuda, saying, "Here, he needs it more." "What's his gear again?" "Critical over." Whoa. Him saying, "Alright, this actually might work for him." It's called Overpower, which basically just doubles your strength once more. Really? Yeah. What's the balance breaker look like? It's basically a chest plate, leg plates, no helmet though. Well, kind of a helmet. There's the mask to a helmet and just wrapping around your face. Saying, "Wow, it's like everything missing from the critical overbalance breaker." Well, yes, it's basically the other half of it. And the boosted gear is its equivalent. As he showed it on his, as he had this on his right arm now, he said, "No, activate both." As he said, "Wow, it's like 4 times what I was before." Yes, but now that you're 4 times what you were before, you're also having to do the whole thing again. What? Now you can boost. Really? Yeah, with both of them. You've got one boost and then another, that's it. So I can only get 4 times stronger. Yes, but you're also doing a lot better. Can you try going into Balance Breaker? As he tried going into Balance Breaker on one of them and then trying to do with the other one, get into a smaller version of Issei's armor, which actually looked almost as good, which was actually just a slight bit weaker than the actual Balance Breaker he had, which was just a slight bit more powerful, as he would have to wait a single second between each boost, while Issei wouldn't have to wait any time between each boost. It was basically boost, second, boost, second, boost, second. Well, Issei was boost, 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 boost. As then he said, and if you were to go into Juggernaut Drive, you would actually not have the full dragon form, which would push you at a point where you'd be an unstoppable force. Even the white one would be scared of the true version of the white one. Now, Issei would then say, alright, let's go. Rias now having a full peerage, with that one teacher from that happening, that kind of being the final thing, having to deal with, Rias, with her cousin in that final rating game, Issei would be the main leading factor in this one. Their fight would go basically as canon, with everyone saying it's like two chiseled, perfect gods of perfection we're fighting. They can see the glorious muscles that those two monsters spent every day training. The glorious look, the glorious power. Actually awe-inspiring. The Grabbing Dragon. The true Chad. The absolute powerful, the next most powerful of the Bale House. One of the next Lucifers. Both of the next Lucifers. A chance for these two being the next name to Lucifer and Asmodeus. Lucifer for one of them, Asmodeus for the other, I'm not sure which one. Issei at the end of this fight would actually say good match, as he would actually be on one knee, and while Cyber-Org was on both feet, he was also passed out and vanished. As he said, now you will have had your fun. As Cyber-Org actually became the leader of the house of Lucifer. Actually, I don't know what he was. Was he the heir to the House of Bale? I don't know. If he wasn't, then I really don't care. As he winds up being that powerful, to be as powerful as one of the Lucifers. But he winds up becoming just the Bale household leader. Issei saying, alright, as he himself he took the name Lucifer for himself after, all that happened, saying, there you go. Them still training, Issei actually having kids and everything, that when that goes as that will, and Kuroka actually joining Issei, and smashing with them, having children of their own. At this point, Issei was having the fun of his life, in a final goodbye attempt, as what if Issei was a Giga Chad.